Welcome. Thanks for joining me. This is level two. Today's video, the title of today's video is Rebuild Your Knees. If you missed level one, Revive Your Knees, that was recorded and you can watch the replay. You can find the link in the description below this video to watch that at a later time. So again, I'm glad to be here today. Thank you for those of you joining me live, and for those of you watching the replay. You are most welcome to drop questions, any questions you have about building stronger, healthier knees. Drop those questions in the comments below, and I'll periodically check on those to see what kind of insights I can share with you during this session. So. All right. So excellent. Good. All right. Great. Thanks for those of you that are joining in. Dr. Kelsey and I, my colleague and mentor, Dr. Kelsey, and I have created a program for people that's online that you can do at your own pace. It's kind of a do-it-yourself approach to building stronger, healthier knees. And we've specifically chosen exercises that are very efficient at improving your knees. So you can search the internet for exercises to strengthen your knees or exercises for knee arthritis, and you can find a lot out there. But we've kind of narrowed down what you need to do, when you need to do it, and when to make those exercises more challenging, or when to replace those exercises, and how many times to do it, and all those details. So today I thought it might be helpful if I focus on one aspect of those exercises. And that is squatting. Now, sometimes squatting kind of alarms people with knee pain, because if you're someone with knee pain, you've likely been told, well, just avoid squatting. That's a quick and dirty recommendation that many people get when they go to the doctor and so forth. Or, you have the experience where it's painful when you squat, so clearly you've tried to avoid that. And that can be really appropriate for a short period of time, for a temporary period of time. I'm going to change the angle on my camera a little bit so you can see that chair behind me. Anyone that sits down on a chair is essentially squatting. So it's really difficult to completely cut that exercise or that activity out of, your repertoire, I guess I'd say. So you need to be able to bend your knees and straighten your knees with pressure on them. Of course, you need to do it when, you're putting on a pair of pants, but the squatting is when your feet are in contact with the floor and your knees are bending and straightening. That I call squatting. So sitting down on a chair or a couch, going up and down stairs, you're doing a small squat on one foot and then the other, picking up something off of the floor, kind of squatting down or getting underneath the kitchen cabinet to reach something in the back under the sink. All of those things involve squatting. So the hope is that, the guidelines are not to push through that pain, but to do some of the activities and exercises from Revive Your Knees, as you also find ways to squat that are easy enough, gentle enough on your knees, and then kind of build from there. Talked a little yesterday about the fact that, you need strong muscles, but sometimes if you work the muscles in your leg, in your hips, thighs, legs, wherever, if you work those muscles hard enough, it puts too much pressure on your knees at the time. And you might feel it during the exercise, or you may feel it the next day. And so I'm going to share with you an exercise that you can do. It's in a part of Better Knees for Life, and I'll kind of walk you through why you're doing it and what the benefits are. certainly you can stand in front of a chair and your exercise could be sitting down on the chair and standing up from the chair. But if you use a piece of tubing, this is the one in the background attached to the door is called a gray cook band. And use this type of tubing, you get some additional benefits, and I'll explain why, what those are. So this can be attached simply by, there's 2 webbed loops on each end of this tubing. And slide those over the top of the door latches, it's not popping open. I oftentimes will recommend that you kind of pull up the slack kind of thing, and then that's a secure kind of attachment that's really easy to do at home. I also recommend having a chair that then faces the door, and you're going to put that loop of tubing around your trunk. So the tubing is around my trunk, under my arms, and then I'm going to step back from the attachment, step back from this door, little steps until I feel like if I were to totally relax, the tubing would kind of pull me forward onto my tiptoes and potentially cause me to make a step forward. But if I maintain some muscle tension in my trunk, I don't relax completely, I can stand here relatively easily. So the chair is behind me. I'm standing in front of the chair. My core is tight. I push through my heels as much as I can. You know, the band is going to pull you forward, but you'll push through your heels. And then you'll sit down on the chair with control. This tubing is doing a couple of things, okay? Use your hands initially onto the chair to stand up, because you'll be able, it's gentler on your knees to do the descent portion of the squat than it is the ascent or rising portion of the squat. So making this as gentle as possible, you'll use your hands to stand up. Nice and slow on the descent. You should feel like there's something working here, but it's really quite easy. And that's called an assisted eccentric chair squat. The tubing is lifting you a little bit, so you're getting some amount of, it's making you a little bit lighter on your knees. It's also the angle of pull will create a force that will encourage your core muscles at your waist, your core muscles to tighten, which provides a good foundation for your hip muscles to work from. So your hip and your core are supporting your thighs, and so without that tubing, you have, it's more challenging to turn on your core, and you have a little bit more pressure on your knees. So that makes it gentler. The descent portion of the squat is the gentler portion on your knees. You can lower into the chair. When you're doing it with control, that's gentler on your knees than, say, rising up from a chair, or standing up from the couch, or so forth. So in Better Knees for Life, we will introduce something like that in terms of squatting. And it's not necessarily done on an every single day basis. So that exercise is part of a routine that involves 5 exercises. Those 5 exercises are recommended to be done 2 or 3 times a week, always with a day of rest in between. When you have a day of rest in between, it allows your body to respond to the stimulus or the exercise. So the exercise is telling your body, well, you need to be stronger, because in whatever ways that you're getting challenged, but you actually do the work. Your body does the work of getting stronger during those rest breaks. So the commitment for these exercise routines is at least twice a week, and maybe 3 times a week. Starting out, that might take you 20 or 30 minutes. And you may do the exercise that I just recommended. If you're in that particular exercise routine, 10 times or 10 reps, and you go through it a second time. So all 5 exercises are done once, and then all 5 exercises are done a second time. And then there's very specific recommendations in terms of, okay, now that I've been able to do this and my knees have felt good, now what do I do? So initially you'll increase the volume. So instead of doing it 2 times through, you may do it 3 times through. But at another point, if you meet the kind of the check boxes, and there's only a couple of them, but when you achieve a certain level, and that's outlined in the program, then you'll go to the next set of exercises, or the next exercise routine. So as I'm going through this, if you have any questions and you want to drop those questions in the chat or comment below, you're welcome to do that. I'm happy to answer questions as we're going through this. Excellent. Okay. So I did get a couple of questions that were sent in ahead of this session. People that weren't going to be able to be here live, but were interested in a couple of things. And one was, will I need to do these exercises for the rest of my life? Now, I'm not sure if this question was in reference to yesterday's Revive Your Knees, or if it was related to, the exercises I'm talking about, today, where you do it 2 or 3 times a week. Yesterday's exercises were things that you can kind of weave into every single day, that are gentle and good foundational movements and exercises. Aren't super challenging, but definitely allow you to challenge your knees at other times. So, but regardless, what I would say is that you will not, like, where you start out, improving your knees will be different 6 weeks and 6 months, and likely 6 years from now. So things that you're doing for gentle motion, which was what we talked about yesterday, and I used the example of sitting in a chair with a furniture mover. You may phase that out gradually and replace that movement with something like, cycling, whether that's a stationary bike or maybe outdoors and so forth. So I hope that provides some insights in terms of that question. It's kind of like maintaining other parts of your body. So when you brush your teeth, twice a day, you don't necessarily think, oh gosh, do I really have to spend this 2 minutes doing this? I think most likely because we've always, we've grown up brushing our teeth. When we're doing certain things on a daily basis, a few minutes here, a few minutes there, for our knees, it can feel like, well, I didn't used to have to do this, and that can kind of feel like that's definitely a shift, and I can certainly appreciate that. But when if cycling is something you enjoy anyways, it's a way to also kind of take care of your knees. So as you kind of move through the program, you can definitely notice that, oh, this looks different, but in a way, there's still things that I need to do to keep my knees feeling good. Oftentimes, the onset of symptoms in your knees is related to a fluctuation. Like there's, maybe you're really active and then something happens and there's a season that you're less active, whether that's, a career or work obligation or family or caretaking obligation, and the activity goes down for your knees. And then when you resume the activity again, your knees can start to complain. So your knees give you these messages, and by listening to those messages, and you can build them. You can build a stronger, kind of healthier joint, the area inside your knees, and then that yields a sense of being able to do more things that you enjoy doing without getting complaints, which oftentimes makes the maintenance that needs to happen for your knees in the long term, it makes it all worthwhile. Okay. If you just joined me, you're welcome to drop questions about building stronger, healthier knees in the comment section. I'm going to answer another question that was sent to me via email. So I'm just pulling that up. I'm going to read off of it because I think I've gotten some similar questions about this, but it's a very common question. So the subject of the email was Better Knees for Life program. And I'm reading from the email. It states that this program is not suitable if you have imaging studies like x-rays or MRIs that have revealed fractures, ligament tears, and or grade 4 cartilage injuries or areas of cartilage loss with exposed bone. I have an MRI that revealed complete horizontal cleavage tear, meniscus tears, a slight tear on the outer lateral meniscus, and grade 4 cartilage injuries with areas of cartilage loss with exposed bone of medial condyle, and also a 2 by 1 inch Baker's cyst and swelling around the patella. Okay, so I'm going to pause. There's a little more to the email and a little more to the question, but I'm going to pause there and say, yes, there's a link if you're interested in Better Knees for Life and you want to learn more about it, there's a link in the description for this video. And you will notice that we don't recommend it for people with grade 4 cartilage injuries. Typically, that level of injury, that level of damage to the cartilage requires a little bit more customized approach. So the same approach can work, but Better Knees for Life is kind of like this step 1, step 2, step 3, and you follow along the program and you're implementing it on your own. And when you have a cartilage injury that's grade 4, it's more severe, then you likely need, a little bit more tweaking for that particular, for all the particular exercises, introducing them and so on to be successful. I think for most people, it becomes pretty frustrating to kind of figure that out on their own. Excuse me a moment. But this person also mentioned a Baker's cyst, which I think is relatively common. I get that question of like, okay, I have a Baker's cyst, what do I do for that? And Better Knees for Life can definitely help someone with a Baker's cyst. So if you have a Baker's cyst, oftentimes it's on the back side of your knee. It's essentially, it's an area of the capsule of your so the capsule surrounds your entire knee, kind of 360. And an area of the capsule, there's a weakening in that surface. And when there's swelling inside your knee, even if it's not like you look at your knee and you think, oh, it's really puffy, but if there's an increase in the fluid of your knee related to injury or related to just putting too much pressure on your knee, then that increase in swelling inflates that area of the capsule, and it shows up on imaging as like this what they call a Baker's cyst, or a cyst, or an area which that kind of pooches out. So it's not, the pooching out of the capsule, that cyst in itself is not necessarily the problem. The problem is there's that excessive fluid, that thinner fluid. And yesterday I talked about ways to make that fluid thicker. When it's healthy, it's the thickness of egg whites. And so decreasing the forces on your knees that are creating that ongoing amount of extra thinner fluid that inflates essentially the Baker's cyst is kind of part one of addressing knee pain related and including a Baker's cyst. And then in addition to that, gradually strengthening the surfaces inside your knee as well as the muscles. So starting with the surfaces first, because they have less ability to heal. They don't have blood supply like your muscles do, and then kind of proceeding from there. So that being said, let me go back to the email and the rest of the question. I have no problem doing squats, lunges, and leg extensions, etc. I can do general activities, gardening, up and down ladders, etc., pain-free for a few hours. However, I tend to get some discomfort later on that day and the following days due to increased swelling of the Baker's cyst and swelling around the patella or the kneecap. No to medial joint pain. So a couple of things there. Not having symptoms during the activity, whether that's squatting in the garden or whether that's climbing or going down a ladder, doesn't necessarily indicate that those activities are okay for your knees, because the swelling or achiness or soreness, fullness, whatever the symptoms are that you're having, may not happen until a few hours later. It takes a while for that to kind of accumulate, or in the case of the achiness rather than the swelling, you're not going to feel it while it's happening because there's not nerve supply to the inside of your knee essentially where the damage is happening. So what happens is when the damage is detected by nearby areas inside the knee, which can be several hours later, sometimes the next day, then you get the sensations that are not ideal. And so sometimes it's important to decrease those activities that may be causing too much pressure to your knees, even if while you're doing them, they feel okay. I think of this, I think it's helpful to think about a bank account analogy when it comes to this. So when you're trying to build stronger, healthier knees, you need a bigger balance in your knee account to afford all the activities without going into debt. So going into debt for your knees would mean that they're feeling stiff or achy or painful in some way. And in order to avoid that completely, you need a big enough balance. So whatever you're spending is less than your balance. It is harder to get out of debt than it is to stay out of debt for your knees and in life in general, at least, for most people. So getting out of debt means that you put in lots of deposits. So the right types of exercises, not just once, but like over and over again. It's like pocket change. It takes some time to accumulate over days and weeks and months. And then avoid overspending your knee account or doing exercises and activities that put too much pressure on your knees and cause your symptoms later. And the combination then builds your knee account. So then gradually over a period of weeks and months, you can do more and your knees don't complain at all. So that's kind of the goal there. This person continued and said, I currently do a traditional leg and hip strengthening program. I feel that that if I could control the swelling, there would be great improvement. Do you think Better Knees for Life would be suitable for me? So my answer to this person was, I think that this approach for your knees, to build them up in terms of their level of strength and so on, their resiliency, it's a good approach for the situation that this person was describing. However, a do-it-yourself approach like Better Knees for Life may not be, it may be frustrating to try and do it by yourself. So I do offer coaching sessions, and if you're interested in that, my website shares more information on that. On the other hand, some people don't want the commitment of meeting with me. They would rather kind of, hey, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna fit it in where I can, and so on. And they just want to kind of start to check it out on their own. And I certainly wouldn't discourage that. Um, it's a much, you know, easier investment to join Better Knees for Life. And you can do it without a risk of thinking like, if this isn't working at all and it's within the first 30 days, just send me an email. I don't want people to feel like they're stuck in a program that's not helping them. And so sometimes you have to just try it and see if that's going to help you. So again, there's a no questions asked refund policy during the first 30 days of joining Better Knees for Life. I will certainly, I would certainly be interested if you did try it and you had any feedback on what could be more helpful. I'm always interested in knowing that. But I think a lot of people get the help they need during the question and answer session. So I offer that twice a month via Zoom. And there's a private community where you can post those questions. You don't have to show up live. You can watch those replays as well. All right, wonderful. I don't see any questions in the chat, which is fine. But if you have one, I'm going to watch that for the next moment or two. I'm happy to answer anything if there are questions. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that if your symptoms fluctuate, your knee symptoms fluctuate. So if you get more symptoms when you do certain exercises and activities, and you have less symptoms when you avoid them, that's a very good indicator that this approach will work for you. If your symptoms change throughout the day, so maybe in the morning, mid-morning, you feel a lot better than you do by the end of the day, that's another really good indicator. If you have stiffness, it's pretty significant in the morning when you wake up and you move around for a little bit and that gets better, that's another good indication that this approach will work well for you. You don't want, and this is listed in the Better Knees for Life link in the description below this video, but you don't want to expect that if you have severe pain or you have pain that doesn't change, it's just always the same. It's always, there's nothing that you can do that makes it any better or any worse, then that would be an indication that this probably isn't going to yield positive results for you. All right, well, I'll be live again tomorrow, 5 hours later than I have been today during this session. So depending on what time zone you're in, you just add 5 hours to today's time, or you can look in the description below this video and it kind of lists out various time zones for tomorrow's session. And bring your questions, or I'll have some additional insights on level 3 of Better Knees for Life. All right, take care.